This episode opens with King Leopold, the lion ruler, glaring furiously at his crown atop the high cliff. His warrat assassin, Van Morton, warns him that their supplies have dwindled since the siege, a battle in which the other warlords allied with Drew, the true heir, to reclaim the throne that Leopold had stolen from Drew's father, the Wolf King. When Van Morton suggests retreat, Leopold slashes him to the ground with his claws, raging that his enemies will only take the crown from his lifeless hands. From a distance, Drew hears Leopold's roar and remarks that some never know when to quit. Brogan responds that Leopold can roar all he likes, but he is finished. Drew declares that he will rest easier once every lion is gone, and Brogan assures him that if any remain at the cliffs, his men will hunt them down. Their talk is interrupted when soldiers shout after one of Leopold's men fleeing with stolen goods. Drew uses his werewolf strength to leap from the building and pursue the thief himself. As he closes in, he suspects the figure might be his half-brother Trent. But after seizing him, Drew realized it was a mistake, not Trent after all. Watching from the shadows nearby, Van Morton observes Drew. Then a bell tolls, and Drew rushes to the palace, with his chancellor Hector hurrying there too. Near the palace, Whitney is training Gretchen to control her war powers for self-defense. Drew dashes past, startling Gretchen into finally manifesting her abilities, glowing blue eyes and claws at the ready. Hector chides Drew, saying he still can't believe he named him chancellor when older, wiser lords were expecting the honor. Drew replies that he chose Hector because he trusts him with his life. Together they reach the Council of Warlords. Drew apologizes for his lateness, explaining he was chasing a lion soldier. This angers Duke Bergen, who has warned Drew repeatedly not to get into trouble. The council insists Drew should be ruling the kingdom from above, not skirmishing below. But Drew argues he cannot relax while Leopold prowls the keep, and his son Lucas still roams free. Bergen urges him to leave matters to the city guard and remember his duty. Hector reminds him that the people have only just regained their Wolf King and expect him to survive long enough for coronation. With the throne nearly his, Drew faces kingly responsibilities, treaties to sign and alliances to secure across the 7 realms. Suddenly, Leopold's roar echoes again, and the old queen warns that as long as the lion clings to the throne, Drew is not yet their true king. She urges vigilance, for danger may strike from anywhere. Meanwhile, far away, Lucas is seen raising a mysterious army bound for Westland. The old queen then counsels Drew that he must also find a bride before coronation. Suggesting Gretchen, she stirs an uneasy glance from Whitney, who overhears during training. Later, when Drew sees Gretchen, he nearly asks her to be his queen, but Hector intervenes, claiming Drew only wishes to walk with her through the city. He advises Drew to take things slowly. As Drew and Gretchen stroll together, Whitney watches with sorrow. Van Morton lurks nearby, spying on them. Drew confides in Gretchen that the old queen expects him to wed, and as he indirectly hints at proposing, Gretchen storms off upset. She longs to be his queen but wants him to ask plainly and openly. Distraught, she flees to her parents' tomb, wishing they were still alive. There, Lucas appears and orders Van Morton to seize her. He and Whitney hear Gretchen's cries and rush to her aid. A lion guard suddenly ambushes Drew with a silver spear, deadly to werewolves. Enraged, Drew fights back, but Whitney joins in since the weapon weakens him. After a brutal struggle, they defeat the guard, who falls from the tomb. Hector later retrieves the corpse to his chambers and summons Drew and Whitney. While they wish to alert the council, Drew insists they keep it quiet. Gretchen has been taken, and he blames himself. He urges Hector to use his sorcery to discover the lion's plans. Hector draws a circle around the corpse, resurrecting it under his control. Questioned, the guard admits Gretchen was taken south, where darkness awaits the wolf and his allies. Determined to intercept Lucas, Drew resolves to ride south at once. Hector and Whitney object, urging him to send soldiers instead. Hector argues kings don't take such reckless risks, but Drew insists this is the kind of king he is. He pleads with Hector to let him go. Against Duke Bergen's orders, Hector secretly helps Drew slip away, knowing Bergen, who still governs until coronation, would forbid it. Meanwhile, Lucas and Van Morton travel with Gretchen. She refuses their food, and when Van Morton prepares to enchant her, Lucas stops him, offering her a flower instead and asking her to rule by his side. Gretchen scorns him, vowing never to be his queen. Cleverly, she plucks petals and scatters them from the carriage to leave a trail for her rescuers. After nearly a day of pursuit, Drew and Whitney discover the flowers and press on. Unable to win Gretchen, Lucas finally allows Van Morton to use magic on her. But before he can, Gretchen unleashes her fox-like powers, shoving Lucas aside and fleeing into the forest. She speeds through the trees with supernatural agility, but Van Morton intercepts with dark sorcery, sacrificing one of their guards to capture her again. He tells Lucas the dead soldier can still serve them, reanimating him through black magic. Lucas warns that if anyone follows Gretchen's trail, they will meet this dangerous revenant. Back at the council, Duke Bergen rages at Hector for letting the future king leave the city, stripping him of his position as punishment. He sends his son Brogan with guards to retrieve Drew, Whitney, and Gretchen. Meanwhile, Hector begins to see unsettling visions of the undead lion guard he revived. Out in the wilderness, Drew and Whitney pause to rest, only to hear a mysterious voice in the woods. There, They encounter an old woman tending her poison husband. Whitney whispers that they must be Rari, seers from the long ridings. The woman notices their presence and sharply asks if they plan to help her, or just stand and watch. An elderly woman introduces herself as Baba Corga. Drew and Whitney quickly spot a bite wound on Baba Corga's ailing husband and demand to know who caused it. She gives him a herb that slows the infection, but admits it cannot cure him. She explains to Drew that the bite came from a corpse that still walks, creatures that move silently, see without seeing, and never truly rest. It slaughtered their horse before turning on them. She then shows a lion guard's helmet, making it clear to Drew and Whitney that one of Lucas's guards was to blame. Baba Corga reveals they saw the guard not far down the road. Ignoring her warning that nothing dead can be killed again, Drew and Whitney set off to find him. After they depart, Baba Corga finally accepts that nothing more can be done for her husband. Soon after, he transforms into one of the undead and attacks the camp. Meanwhile, Drew and Whitney encounter the undead lion guard. The fight proves difficult, especially when Baba Corga's reanimated husband joins in. Luckily, Drew seizes his silver blade, and when he strikes the creatures, they crumble to dust. They conclude that only a sorcerer could conjure such horrors, and suspect Van Morton is behind it all. Returning to Baba Corga, she clarifies that her people are not fortune tellers. They discern truth from lies. She tells Drew he is the rightful heir, though plagued by fear and doubt. He believes himself alone, but she reminds him his companions, despite their own struggles and secrets, are stronger than they realize. United by truth and love, they are far from helpless. Drew notices Whitney trembling and asks what troubles her. She brushes it off as cold, though we see she carries her own secret. She has been bitten. Is there hope for her survival? The next episode opens with Whitney waking from a nightmare of herself as one of the undead, Drew's sword aimed at her. The poison worsens, filling her with terror. Drew insists they must leave the camp and continue their pursuit of Lucas and Gretchen. When Whitney struggles to rise, Baba Corga helps her and discovers the bite on her palm. She urges Whitney to seek Baron Ewan of Haggard, a renowned sorcerer capable of healing both body and spirit. She hands Whitney a map and warns her to reach him before nightfall, or the poison will consume her completely. Drew and Whitney set off on foot, using their were powers to gain speed, until they finally come across Gretchen. Lucas unleashes his guard on them. Whitney warns Drew the soldier wields silver, and indeed Drew weakens under the weapon's touch. Just as the guard prepares to kill Whitney, Drew loses control and shifts into full werewolf form. Still, the silver blade slices his arm. Whitney saves him by kicking the guard over a cliff. Lucas and Van Morton escape once again with Gretchen. As Drew tries to pursue, Whitney collapses in weakness. She reveals the bite to him and begs him to leave her behind and save Gretchen, but Drew refuses to abandon her. When Whitney falls unconscious, Drew notices the map clutched in her hand. Carrying her in his arms, he vows to take her to Haggard for Baron Ewan's aid. Upon arrival, they find the town eerily deserted. Suddenly, a man tries to seize Whitney, but before Drew can fight him off, a wergoat named Count Kessler appears and intervenes. Drew and Whitney are captured and taken to a hall where the villagers stand bewitched, locked in a trance. Kessler had forced Baron Ewan, the former lord, to use his magic against his own people so they could be sold as slaves. Drew begs Ewan to heal Whitney, but the sorcerer warns him to keep their true identities hidden. Enemies could exploit them. When Ewan hesitates to attempt a cure, Kessler orders his guard, Trapdoor, to throw Whitney into a pit, claiming dying slaves hold no value. Desperate, Drew reveals Whitney is a warlord. The revelation excites Kessler, who commands Ewan to save her for the fortune she would bring on the market. As for Drew, he demands the sorcerer put him into a trance. Elsewhere, Duke Bergen receives a message from King Leopold, boasting of supposed surrender. He shares it with the council, but Vega and the old queen suspect treachery. Meanwhile, within the trance, Drew faces a dark version of himself that vows to claim the crown if he will not. When Whitney is finally healed by Baron Ewan, Kessler decides to sell her and orders Drew and the villagers burned alive. Inside the mine prison, Drew realizes the dark figure is nothing more than his own fear. By recalling all those who love him, he breaks free from it, something no one has ever done before. Awed, Baron Ewan releases his people from the enchantment. Together with Drew, they guide the villagers out of the burning building. Ewan tells Drew that Kessler has taken Whitney to his ship to sell her to the Lord of Scoria. Drew races to the dock. Whitney, tapping into her werbear strength, breaks free and battles Kessler. She defeats the wergoat, sending him overboard just before Drew arrives. Though she insists she can fend for herself, Drew is relieved to find her alive. At the same time, the old queen and Vega try warning the council not to attend Leopold's meeting, knowing he would never truly yield. Their caution goes unheeded. The majority votes to go. During the gathering, Leopold reveals the truth. It is not he who surrenders, but them. Lion guards surround the council with drawn arrows. It is all a trap. Back with Drew and Whitney, they rush to aid Ewan and the villagers trapped by barricaded gates. Whitney suggests they could break it down together. She scolds Drew for choosing her over the villagers, reminding him that a king must put his people first. He confesses nothing matters more to him than her. Luckily, Brogan and his men arrive, breaking through the gates and freeing the townsfolk. Meanwhile, Leopold mocks the council for their gullibility. Mikkel, a Werdeer, charges in anger, but is swiftly slain by Leopold's claws. His brother Manfred moves to avenge him, but Bergen restrains him, warning that rashness is exactly what Leopold wants. He promises vengeance will come, but only with strategy. And that concludes the part 1 of the show. The remaining part will be uploaded on our channel if this does well, so kindly subscribe to get updated as soon as it drops. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.